Meeting of the Mental Health Recovery Services Board is hereby called to order. Can we have our roll call?
Reverend Gordon,
Present.
Mr. Albright,
Here.
Mr. Arnold,
I'm here.
Ms. Banks, Ms. Bell,
Present.
Mr. Brown, Ms. Carter, Ms. Clark, here, Dr. Elhai, Ms. Friedman,
Here.
Ms. Harding, Ms. Howe, here, Ms. Mendoza-Locke, Ms. Rodriguez,
Here.
Dr. Stock.
Here.
Major White. Here. Miss White.
Thank you very much. We will now have a recognition of visitors. Richard. All right, thank you so much. The determination of items to be removed from the consent agenda, and I shall read them beginning with the meeting minutes from October the 15th, treasurer's report for July, October, fiscal year 25 financial statements, Ohio Moss SOS 4.0 allocations, Lucas County Common Pleas Court Juvenile Division allocations, fiscal year 2025 update, and which includes additional POS allocations, fiscal year 2025 provider agreement changes, the City of Toledo ARPA allocations, Mercy St. Charles Hospital Access Project additional allocations of underspending, and the health officer's designation. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Thank you.
Did anybody want anything removed?
Mr. Albright.
Aye.
Mr. Arnold.
Aye.
Ms. Bell.
Yes.
Mr. Brown.
Yes.
Ms. Carter. Ms. Clark.
Yes.
Ms. Friedman.
Yes.
Ms. Howe.
Yes.
Ms. Mendoza-Locke.
Yes.
Ms. Rodriguez.
Yes.
Dr. Stock.
Yes.
Major White.
Yes.
Thank you, it is approved. And Scott.
Okay, we have a couple of things that we needed to add to the agenda. You guys know I normally don't like to add anything onto the agenda that hasn't gone through committee. So I want to draw your attention to the bottom of page 27 and pages 28. After our last Planning and Oversight Committee meeting, we became aware of a programming glitch in our attempt to move from our GOSH claims automation system to the Streamline Smart Care system. Our plan was to have these systems in place and run concurrently so that we could test against each other while we convert over to Smart Care. We became aware late last week, I guess it was some mid last week, that there was a programming glitch that is not going to allow us to convert to Smart Care on January 1. Our GOSH contract with the Montgomery County Board expires on December 31st. we do not feel it's in our best interest to continue the GOSH contract, largely due to expense of that contract. It's an additional amount. It's probably gonna be, if we were to do that, first, if they were interested in doing it, which that's debatable. And if they were interested, it'd probably be about additional $20,000. And the reality is I don't think we really need to spend that money. So if those are the circumstances, we need an alternative way to pay the POS funded agencies for the treatment that they are providing for that period of time that we won't have a claims automation system. Our contract that we have contemplates some of this process, not all of it. It contemplates that if you're able to submit claims, but for some reason we can't pay them, that we'll give them 90% of what their claims submitted were. Our board policy on contract advances states things a little differently, but doesn't really apply either, because it's really more generated towards grants than it is POS. But nonetheless says any advance contemplated would need to come to this board. And I'm gonna ask you to correct me if I say anything wrong. So really it's a matter of, okay, what do we come up with then to make sure the agencies get their money? So we've tried to stay consistent with the policy on contract advances and the contract language. And essentially said, we're proposing that we look at October, November, and December claims paid and use those figures to pay 90% of those claims in a grant for January, February, and March. And then we'll reconcile those amounts with the actuals in April, May, and June. So we presented a motion to that effect. And the reason we wanna do it on a monthly basis is because we anticipate that the claims SmartCare will come up sometime within that, probably February, mid to late February. We will still be able to run concurrently, we'll just have to do it retroactively. So we'll have what the claims data was for like October and November and December in GOSH, and we can compare those figures in Streamline to see if they matched. So we don't feel we're missing anything, we just need your approval to go ahead and make those changes. And I hope I didn't thoroughly confuse you, but I'm happy to answer any questions.
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
How do we know for certain that the new system will be up and running by March 31st?
Well, we do have a policy, we do have a contract. That contract has to be extended. We were on pace to be on course. Do we know for absolutely 100% sure? No, I can't tell you that, but I'm pretty good faith that we'll be up and running probably before March 1st.
So let me paraphrase. You said you're gonna take 3 months and you're gonna take 90% of that. Okay, so there shouldn't be an instance where they're overpaid.
No, and even if they were, because I guess technically they could be overpaid if their true claims are less than 90% of what their, let's say their January claims were less than 90% of what we gave them. But it doesn't really matter anyway, because we reconcile all that out on an ongoing basis, so they never are overpaid.
Sure.
So are they paid just services that were rendered?
Yes, always just paid for the services that were rendered, and that's what the reconciliation would do, it would just match it back up.
What's the impact on the agencies? Because some of them may really depend on that money and they're only getting 90%.
Well, I'll remind everybody that might be true for several of the smaller organizations. But we are such a small percentage of their treatment claims, and they'll still continue to
Sure.
bill as normal. And frankly, if they called us and said, hey, we're not gonna be able to do this or that because of this, I mean, we would try and make some reconciliation for them. And we might have to come back in January or something like that, but this seemed the most prudent way of doing things. And getting it on the books and informing people of what is actually gonna happen before January 1 is probably a really good idea.
Do you think the agencies are okay with this?
Yeah, I do.
Okay.
I mean, cause that's why we tried to stay close to the contractual language. Do they wanna get just 90% of what they think? No, but, I don't necessarily wanna give them 90% either. I'd like to give them 100% of what their claims are. But this is very close to the current contract language. So it shouldn't be a surprise that we went in this direction. You know, I always try to stay somewhat consistent with the contract and previous previous responses, and it's also consistent with our contract advance policy.
This makes sense to me, but I just, for the true up, will Gosh have to be able to talk to Smart Care?
No,
Have to do it manually?
no, we know what their amounts are already, so we can run those consistent. I mean, we won't lose access to the information that was already processed in Gosh.
Okay.
We will actually be backloading that information in the Smart Care.
Okay, so that's archived and then it'll move over. Okay, got it.
Not being an attorney, but having a understanding of some type of contract law or provisions. Since this is a policy that we're going to be deviating from, should the language not include non-precedent setting provision of this?
I'm not quite clear on what you might want to add to that, but I would just simply say that if we don't do something, the current language in the contract does not apply, and neither really does the contract advance policy. So that's why we're kind of hybriding. So if you want to make some suggestion,
I just want to make sure that this cannot come back and bite us and be viewed as a precedent going forward.
You just wanted an added statement stating that this is not a principle.
on a one-time basis,
Yes.
or,
Yes.
that would be fine.
We not have some sort of document that would memorialize?
Yeah, we will
what
have, we will have to submit an agreement, you know, a amendment, so to speak.
So
we
it
usually do
will
a
be
one-pager.
documented.
We could do it in that as well. If you want to add it,
If my colleagues on the board who hold those licensures as attorneys are okay with that, I'm okay with it. I just bring that to the forefront.
I mean, you're talking
I've
about.
never read something I haven't read. So we're just gonna go on the record with that. I just don't give a blanket, I'm okay with it.
Yeah, I don't think anything needs to be added to the motion
Right.
to accomplish what Calvin's talking about. But if you want, I assume that the document will either be run by the prosecutor if you want Nima and I to look at it or whatever.
yeah, we would run it by the prosecutor, and if,
I would like to see a waiver that the agency understands that they're getting less than 100% and they waive any claim to the, to getting it prior to when they're gonna get it in the true up.
sure. Yeah, I mean, I'll have to think about how that language works out, and we will, as it gets complicated, as the language gets more complicated, then we always run it by the prosecutor. If it's just straight standard stuff that we know how to deal with things, we don't typically run that through the prosecutor's office. Largely because we've run so many of these through, we know what they're gonna accept and what they don't. So, yeah, we can do that.
And are the agencies giving us their POS billings for January, February, and March? Like in January, February, and March?
When we are able to accept them in Smart Care, yes, then they will have to be. We don't have any way to accept them before.
Alright. So we're assuming that they have a way to backlog them.
Well, they all have electronic health records, so it's just, they submit a 837P file to us, and then, I mean, that's all done electronically.
And we're not gonna, are we in any kind of a document gonna call these funds a grant? Because I thought I understood you to use that term.
Well, when I say grant, we'll pay them a monthly sum. But I stopped short of, what I wanted to do was clarify that this is part of their POS allocation. We're just not paying it on a per claim basis for these next couple of months. And we've done this, by the way, we've done this a couple of different times when the auditor's office stops processing checks. So, but we're always able to receive their claims, and then we can pay based off those claims submitted. This is unique because we won't be able actually to receive those claims until the new system's up and running.
Is there any way, I realize it's only for 90 days, but is there any way for them to give us some sort of indication as to if they, like, even if it's just total, big numbers, if we had been able to submit, this is what it would be, so that we're keeping account of what these numbers are for this 3-month period, given the increases that are rolling in? Is my question
Yeah, I
clear?
understand exactly what you're saying. So
Okay.
we can track the difference between what we've provided them and what the claims might total. Yes, but that is not without a few caveats as well, because claims roll in at a different time. They, it's not a static process. Certain claims might get rejected and then they roll into us, and so just understanding that it's soft numbers until they're final. Actually, we have created a process where we'll be monitoring claims on a monthly basis compared to growth to get an estimate of what our POS needs are moving into the future. So this makes sense to do that as well.
Thank you.
Any questions? Motion is on the bottom of page 27.
Second.
Mr. Albright,
Yes.
Mr. Arnold,
Yes.
Ms. Banks,
Yes.
Ms. Bell,
Yes.
Mr. Brown,
Yes.
Ms. Carter,
No.
Ms. Clark,
Yes.
Ms. Friedman,
Yes.
Ms. Howe,
Yes.
Ms. Mendoza Locke,
Yes.
Ms. Rodriguez,
Yes.
Dr. Sadaf,
Yes.
Major White,
Yes,
Ms. White.
Yes.
Sacky.
All right, thank you. Motion passes. All right, next on our agenda. Yes, sir.
I have a question, not about this, but about the glitch. Whose end is the glitch on, ours or theirs?
Really good question, and I don't think I'd wanna answer that in a public meeting. Because if I say it's mine, it might be, if I say it's theirs, it might be, you know what I mean? I think we need to investigate a little.
Thank you.
All right, the appointments to the Executive Nominating Committee, which will meet January 14th. Those persons are Gordon, Bell, Harding, Major White, Arnold, Rodriguez. And added was Friedman, Clark, and then Mr. Calvin Brown requested to be added as well. So those persons will be Executive Nominating Committee. Anyone else want to be added? All right, it is what it is. Today is,
Lisa, did you
yes,
wanted to be added to executive
Okay.
nominating?
you're added. Lisa is added to it.
All right.
All right, today is Erica's last meeting with us, and we want to say to you how much we appreciate your input and your participation on our board, working with us. But we're going to give you an opportunity to share your thoughts and what you want to say to us, as this is your last time meeting.
I could try to furnish my candy.
You want me to go into my executive report, director's report, to give you a little time to?
That'd be great.
And then you can get done chewing too.
Remember this when I come and see you in January.
Right.
Okay, I'll do a quick report. Speaking of legislation and legislators, House Bill 257 passed the House last week. And if passed by the Senate tomorrow, that's their last session, and signed by the governor, which we think is going to happen, that will clear the way for board trustees to participate in meetings virtually
Oh, nice.
under certain conditions. That doesn't mean we'll be able to hold, as far as we're reading it right now, it doesn't mean we'll be able to hold an entirely virtual meeting. It means that 50% of the participation could be virtual, up to a certain number of meetings in attendance. So each trustee would only be able to participate in a virtual meeting, several times, 2 or 3 times over the year. We would have to pass a policy identifying all that, but there's a few other things in the law that will be required. And it appears that it's going to be applicable to most public bodies who aren't elected, and then, compensated for their service. So it wouldn't apply to township trustees, city council, mayor's office, kind of county commissioners, things like that. More like boards and commissions that serve uncompensated. Ours, DD, CSB, family council, things like that. But that's still good news, and it will certainly improve access to quorums around the state. We don't seem to have a problem with quorums, thanks to our highly dedicated trustees, of which you all are. But there are communities around the state that struggle with quorum, particularly in rural communities that have long drives. You have these multi-county boards. We have a board that is as big as 6 counties. We have several that are 3 and 4 counties. So that's, hour and a half or so drive in many cases. So some of those struggle, and so we're hopeful that this will pass and give a little bit more flexibility. I wanted to give you a quick Danny's Place update. I was out there yesterday. I did not walk in the mud like most of the other people did, because I'm telling you, that mud was this deep. But the exterior is almost completed. I'd say it's like 95% complete. There's just some composite paneling to go up on the upper end of the roof. All the brickwork is done. All the windows are in. I think the doors should be complete by the end of this week. All the roofing is obviously done. And all the internal framing is done as well. So they haven't started drywall work or anything like that. And one of the complicating factors that they've had is that they've had to run off generator power. They've not had electricity to the site. And they were starting to do the directional boring for the electricity yesterday while I was out there. This is just one of those complications of working with the state on state land. Who is doing what? Who has to authorize what? We're having the same situation with Spectrum. which has to be the service provider because it's state land and the state owns the state has a contract with Spectrum. But finding somebody at the state who actually will authorize Spectrum to go on the property and do the work it's just complicated. But it results in some slowdowns. But there, week by week, there's tremendous progress that's occurring. I have Steve Spinelli, who works here as our Director of Strategic Planning, IT, and I'm sure something else, is actually sourcing some of the owner-provided contractor-installed stuff. So we're already sourcing out like dishwashers and laundry and receptacles, things like that. But the big thing that we're pushing out or pushed out this week was the furniture RFP, the internal furniture. That is on our website. We've posted it in the Blade. We put it on our website. We've sent it to a bunch of trade organizations through our contracted architect and engineer and our owner's rep. But if there's any other entities that, and by the way, we also posted it on Facebook, and we normally do the MBE Edge list and send it to those as well. But if there's anybody else that you know of that you'd like us to send a direct notice to, happy to do that. Just shoot me an email real quick with their contact information and we'll make sure they get the link to our website.
Whatever the time in which we will be able to see who has donated and what they have contributed.
Thank you for that lead-in. We are still $680,000 shy of our goal. Senate is leading our fundraising campaign, which we will undoubtedly be letting everybody know who's contributed, and to the extent we know we have a little bit of money to catch up on here. Jenny and I are watching it closely. We went through a round of cuts related to Danny's Place already, and now I'm starting to kind of cherry pick things that are remaining to be purchased that I'm like, we might be able to do without that, or maybe we can put that away, or we might be better off seeing if we can get that donated instead of spending money on it. So we're doing all that now as well, understanding that we still need to have some kind of fundraising activity, which Sen has been working on along with staff. And looking forward to the day where they can turn it over to us and we can cut a ribbon and walk in the door. It's still on target to be completed by the end of June. We will be we're currently working on an RFP for the operator. And our goal is to get it ready to be released in, if not by the end of the year, early January. Questions? Yes, sir.
Projected shortcom, is that due to change orders or was that projected?
No, it is not due to change orders. We've been very diligent on change orders to assign an amount to that in our contingency. So that, there's a 10% contingency fund. That is the amount that we never identified a revenue source for, but we'll continue to need to do that.
So we have a definitive itemized.
Yes, we do. Yeah, we have, dollar for dollar, this is going to that, that's going for that, yes. And the budget with the guaranteed maximum price is $680,000 over what we currently have available.
Products or services? Both.
Yes, ma'am.
Make sure that Spectrum is accessible in that part of Toledo.
It is, because it's already serving NOPH. Yeah. Anything else? Okay, I got a few more things. I mentioned strategic planning last week. or 2 weeks ago. Just wanted to give you an update. I kind of misspoke a little bit. I said early next year, we'll be working on strategic planning. That's not really the case. It's early next fiscal year, which would mean August of 25, not February of 25. To have it in place for the fiscal year 27, fiscal year 27, which would be July 1 of 26. Our current strategic plan is good through that period, so just wanted you to be aware of that. But we'll be working on and are working on an RFP for that as well. Wanted to mention that Michael and his team, Health Equity and Community Engagement, produced a series of podcasts. There's about 11 podcasts that will be released at the first of the year. We'll send you links to the podcast, but also they'll be able to be picked up on lcmentallyWell.com.
Could the podcast be accessed?
Can podcasts be accessed through the apps? That would be no. But that's a great thought. Did you hear that? And the app, we're working on updating the app. The new version should be sometime in the beginning of the year. We were hoping to get a lot more of the providers to voluntarily just put the information in. Well, that's kind of slow going. Most of our contracted providers are already in there. So we're just gonna run with what we got, and then, as Michael said this morning in our staff meeting, people will start to wanna be included when they see it go live, and then they'll adjust.
They will, they'll jump on that.
Wanted to give kudos to Zeph Center's crisis response team and several of our board staff, in particular Elijah, Juanita, Robert, Tina, a few others. We've been responding to community trauma events. Robert and his team have been out to Mobius during the layoffs to talk about what is available, but most recently Zeph Center and our team, Elijah and Juanita, responded to a trauma event. If you recall the stabbing that happened last week at one of the LMH properties. It's fairly common for LMH to contact us now, and we send what we call a NOVA team, which is NOVA is the model, the community trauma response model that we use here, to respond to those community events, to help manage the situation around their, psychiatric condition as it pertains to witnessing the events. So wanted to give kudos to those guys. Also wanted to make sure you understood that January 7th is the Planning and Oversight Committee meeting. January 14th is now the Executive and Nominating Committee meeting. And January 21st is the board meeting. And I will finish with Happy Kwanzaa, Happy Hanukkah, Feliz Navidad, and Merry Christmas.
You covered it all. All right, thank you so much. Yes, Eric.
I just got my little postcard today in the mail with my new property values.
You did?
Yeah, lucky me. So I'm wondering, do we have a way to project how the Lucas County increase in property values is going to benefit us in terms of our levy dollars?
I know the answer to that, but she's the one who researched it.
There is no change.
How can that be?
Yeah. Want to explain it?
No, you go ahead.
You can just give me the quick and dirty.
Because of the way our levy was, I'm gonna botch this. Please explain this.
The levy isn't worded on property tax values. It's based on the value that was established in the levy language. So it's not 1 mil of all property tax values. It's 1 mil estimated to be $9.blank million. The $9.blank million is what's locked in So when your property taxes go up, our tax dollars don't go up. Your millage actually goes down that we collect.
We get less money?
No, we always get the same.
Okay. It's just the percentage
Is
goes
that a
down.
safe way of doing it instead of the fluctuating taxes? Did you have an option, I guess?
No, you do not have an option. The law changed, I think, 2 cycles ago. That was for transparency's sake. You had to have, if those of you on the levy committee, if you remember, we had this conversation and it really irritated me that we have to put that amount in there. But county legal said, no, this is the way the new law reads. So, and we won't even get into inside millage and outside millage and all that fun stuff that.
So if the reverse had happened, let's say my property value had decreased, we would still get the same?
As long as it didn't go above a 1 mil cap. So if it would have, if let's say your property taxes drop below, collectively below, the amount where the dollar amount would not be collected, and the millage is also capped at 1 mil. So I can't collect 1.1 mil. So we get whatever we get then.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions? Erica,
Thank you.
speak to us.
Thank you for coming back to me. After I was a little confused there. Sorry about that look. I know. I just want to say thank you. I've definitely enjoyed and had the privilege actually of being on the board. Definitely will be very useful at understanding the first 6 months as they're telling me of trying to work through the budget as a state rep. So I'm sure I would like to definitely, if you're down at the State House, won't be like the White House, but I can definitely get you a tour of the state capitol. My family is not very excited about that at all. They were not impressed at all. But if you're impressed, I can definitely get you a tour of the state capitol. But no, I am definitely serving on the board is giving me a background of understanding what it'll be like to go over the state budget, and definitely I'm excited that Danny's place is in my district, in District 41. So I'm excited when it's all completed to have served on the board and to show up and to really be a part of it from the beginning into fruition. So excited to do that, and you will see me. Scott said I have to sit over there though now. He said I can't sit here anymore. Sit over there. But I'm sure you'll still see me being a part, because that's something that means a lot to me to still show up and be a part of my community. And again, thank you all for letting me be a part of the board and still being able to come and visit. And Scott, I'll be looking forward to seeing you and many of you at coming down to Columbus, and feel free to give me a call. We are doing swearing-in ceremony January 4th here in Toledo, because I recognize that we are working people and nobody likes to take a Monday off in January when they just start getting their vacation time again. So as everyone, my family reminded me. January 4th, I'll have something on my Facebook also, but at our Union Hall at 705 Lime City Road, January 4th, 11:30 a.m. Judge Ian English will be swearing me in, which I'm excited about, and we'll have a reception and volunteer appreciation afterwards. So I need everybody to come out and we'll have some fun. Thank you.
How proud we are of you, and we know you're going to represent us well. Thank you for serving on the Lucas County Mental Health. 3 years?
2 years.
2 years.
2 years and back at it. And thank you for keeping me warm that day where I didn't want to leave. I came
Yes.
on Pastor Gordon's
And guess
door.
I still have those warmers.
I didn't want to leave. He was like, Eric, we have to finish knocking doors. I was like, can we stay here? Keep talking to Pastor Gordon. It's freezing outside. So thank you.
Thank you.
And by the way, the State House is not boring. It's beautiful.
I record you for my family. They were like, come down and tour the State House.
It's just fabulous.
Yes. And I'll show you all secret nooks and crannies. You can go after hours. We can go and wander around. Yep. Fun. Lots of fun.
January 28th, I'll be there.
Bring the whole bus, yes. It's a big fun session and Richard?
A lot going on at Government Center, but I'll just be brief. County commissioners have finished all of their budget hearings, passed their budget. They won't be meeting again until next January. City Council, it's not going smoothly. They had one of the most chaotic meetings I've ever seen last week. The Intergovernmental and Administrative Services Committee decided to pass 5 budgets in one day. It was a mess. It was a mess because they moved everybody around. They were supposed to do human resources in the morning, instead did them in the afternoon. They moved up marketing and sister cities, and they had about a dozen people that showed up to testify on sister cities, but it had already been heard, and it was just a mess. One of the reasons that they rescheduled all of this was that they'd had a discussion in an earlier meeting about technology upgrades, and Sam Meldon really had a lot of questions, so they scheduled this meeting to discuss it. And he didn't show up for it. I mean, he's on that committee, but he didn't show up. That's getting to be a habit. Earlier, Councilman Martinez really went off on the dog warden in a meeting, and so they scheduled a special safety committee, and the county commissioner's staff was there, and the dog warden was there, and the city council was there, but he didn't show up. So it was basically a waste of everybody's time. There's very poor attendance at city council, and it's definitely affecting the business that they're trying to do. Important business such as at the Plan Commission, I don't know why, but they're going to change Toledo Municipal Code as far as massage parlors. Don't ask me why. They're going to define what's a massage parlor, what's a massage studio, what's the licensure. Not because they've had any complaints, they just felt the need to do it. And that'll probably be passed at the January City Council, and I'm sure that'll make everybody happy. And they continue to get tobacco shops. The latest one will be at well, if it's approved, 606 Reynolds Road. I've reported this in the past. The Plan Commission is completely consistent. Nobody ever complains about these. Nobody ever calls in or anything. They approve them, and then it goes to City Council, and some they approve with minimal discussion, and others they go on and on about the evils of tobacco. So they're wildly inconsistent in which ones they approve and which ones they don't. They'll take a look at that. Oh, and the Plan Commission staff is conducting some kind of a survey to find out more about tobacco shops, but we have plenty of them in Toledo, and we're going to get more. Just briefly, there is a great article in the Sunday Detroit Free Press. It's called A Tale of Two School Shootings. Now, this is from Sunday. That is before our latest school shooting. I hate saying that. Our latest school shooting, the one in Madison, Wisconsin. And this takes a look at the comparisons between the school shooting in Virginia, where you had the 6-year-old that shot his teacher, and the 3 years ago, the school student that shot 4 people at Oxford High in Oakland County. The prosecutors got it right in Virginia. They went after both the parent, the mother, and they also went after the school officials who repeatedly ignored warnings on this kid, and then he finally brought a gun to school and shot his teacher. So as far as the people in Virginia are concerned, I suppose they can find some closure. It's pretty much over with, but not in Oakland County, Michigan, because they only wanted to put the parents in jail. There were plenty of questions about the school officials, but nobody was ever prosecuted. Clearly, they targeted the parents. I kind of hope that across the country, school districts pay attention to both of these. The one in Virginia, where clearly a message was sent. If school officials ignore these warnings, there are consequences. But in Michigan, where there's not, well, 3 years later, just in today's Detroit News, they're bringing in a risk management team from New York that's going to look at what the school officials knew, when did they know it, could they have prevented this, and so. For the people that are still healing 3 years later, it's nothing but press conferences, lawsuits, finger-pointing, accusations, and it goes on and on. They can't find any closure. This is going to continue going on. And it's something that I've said for so many years. For families of the mentally ill, we ignore them until there's a tragedy, and then we blame them. We shouldn't be doing either one of those things. But I've always believed if we do more to help families with a mentally ill adult or child today, then we won't need to prosecute the families later on. And that's my editorial comment. Thank you.
adjourn.
There's some